Commissioner Jay,
Here.
Commissioner Middlestat,
Here.
Commissioner Paraskevas,
Here.
Commissioner Swarzler,
Here.
and Commissioner Adams. Natasha Cronin has changed her name to Natasha Adams, and she is not here as of yet.
All right. Everyone have a chance to review the minutes from the October 5th, 2020 meeting. Any changes or corrections need to be made? Then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Minutes of the October 5th, 2020 meeting are approved. Don't
I
think
see
there's-
one typo. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
My last name is spelled wrong just on the adjourn. It's an autocorrect from Middlestat to Middleton.
My apologies. I do try to catch those. I'm sorry I didn't.
No problem. It happens a lot. Don't worry.
All right, moving right along, we'll move to the visitors' public comments. I don't think we have anybody out there waiting to come in and comment or speak. Don't have any staff reports or presentations to deal with. Unfinished business, none. So we'll skip right to new business. And I have to read a little piece of paper here. This evening, the Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on legislative amendment file number LA-2020-03 to consider amendment of the Independence Development Code. The Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the City Council based on the complete record, including the testimony received at tonight's public hearing. These proceedings will be recorded. This hearing will be held in accordance with the land use procedures required by the city and state of Oregon. This is a type 4 legislative procedure. At the beginning of the public hearing tonight, staff will identify the applicable substantive criteria from the city's comprehensive plan and or state of Oregon statewide planning goals. For anyone wishing to speak, we are asking you to use the speaker cards that are provided. When called upon to speak, you must be recognized by the chair, and you must state your name and address for the public record. Before we begin, do any commissioners wish to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest in this matter? Everybody says no. Okay. I guess I'll just say that we didn't have any yeses. I'll just read everything. For both types of conflicts, please announce the nature of the conflict into the record. For actual conflicts of interest, the official must not participate in the discussions or vote on this matter. It is recommended that he or she take a seat in the audience as to not be tempted to speak in his or her official capacity. For potential conflict, after announcing the nature of the conflict, the official may participate in any discussions or vote on the matter. So I will go ahead and open the public hearing, LA-2020-03. And Fred, how about a staff report, please?
Perfect. Hi there, everybody. Hope you're doing good. So this is a really simple simple code change. Really simple. This would essentially delete 3 subchapters of the Independence Municipal Code, Independence Development Code. But still 3 chapters, 55, 56, and 57. You'll remember we talked about this a couple of months ago. And when we talked about this, one of the things that I pointed out was that these standards are in various multiple points in our current regulations elsewhere. We have sidewalk standards in our municipal code. We also have sidewalk standards in our public works design standards. And then we have them in our Independence Development Code as well. We have cross-connection control standards in our building code standards and our public works design standards and our Independence Municipal Code. And it's like, we probably don't need those in the Independence Development Code as well. So what this would do is just straight up delete these chapters from the code. Now, one of the things that, in talking with Tom today, he mentioned that he thought that I should just sort of point out where some of these things are. So, hey, Jason, can you give me sharing rights? Oh, where is that? Share screen. Okay. And of course, I can never find which is a proper screen to share. I'll try that one. Wrong one. Okay. How do I stop sharing? That's not what I wanted to do. Oh, stop sharing. Where's my stop share button? Oh dear. Well, I had good intentions. I don't know what I did there. All right, this is not right. Screen 1. Oh. Screen 2. Screen 1. All right, let's try this. Share this screen. Can you guys see my screen here? It says legislative hearing script, City of Independence. You can't see that.
anything yet.
Oh. How about now?
Hey.
Can you see?
Yep.
And I see it. I see it. It's over on my screen 1. Okay. I get it now. I get how this whole thing works. All right. So you'll see that we have Public Works design standards. And if you ever want to look at them, you can Google City of Independence Public Works design standards, and you can actually find these Public Works design standards. These are regulated, or these are adopted fairly regularly. You can see it was updated in June 2020 right there. And you can see that these various standards relate to various things. So when we look at section 3, let's say, there's our stormwater management section. And you can see that this is a whole lot more thorough and detailed than the standards that are in our Independence Development Code. So this is why we're really going to relying more on these standards, because they're more up to date, they're more thorough. Just makes sense, right? I'll just show you one more. So you can see here, let's take Division 2. Division 2 is our street standards. So if you ever want to see what our standards are for streets, you can come to this Division 2 and you can see, scroll down, you can see all of these various things related to what the engineer looks for in regards to streets. And this is really a whole lot of very technical details. Now our section 6, you can see, actually starts including drawings. So these are sort of the engineering specs, the details. So this is what we want to see with the various details. You can see the whole thing is a whole lot more complicated and thorough than what's in our Independence Development Code. Because we require all development to do this stuff anyways, it just makes sense to us to have these standards in here. I'll just call out, like, here's a street cross section. So I'll just, oh, wrong way. Ah, I did it again. So you can see here's a street cross section. You can see this is for a local street. It shows what sort of percentage we want to make sure that the water drains, shows what sort of slope we want on the sidewalk, all of this sort of stuff. And then the lane widths, or not lane widths per se, but the curb to curb amount, and then sort of where the center line fits. So all of these things, these are basically our engineering standards. And really having these be what we rely on and reviewing projects makes a whole ton of sense to us. Now, that's in general, the change, I will just note that I had this one of those thoughts today that I realized, oh shoot, there's a couple of sections where it says specifically where it refers to these standards. And so let me share this with you and just show that there are a couple of other places. Now, can you see this? Additional changes to accommodate revisions. So you can see in our mixed use pedestrian friendly commercial zone and downtown overlay zone in 33035, it mentions stormwater facilities. And so you'll see the suggested language that I'm proposing that we include just to accommodate the changes. All stormwater facilities shall comply with, instead of the requirements of subchapter 55, just the Independence Public Works design standards. And then in our site design review requirements in our subchapter 80, you can see it's the same sort of thing where it says the size and location of all stormwater facilities intended to fulfill the requirements of subchapter 55. I just crossed it out and put the Independence Public Works design standards. Now, those are the only two additional changes that need to be made to accommodate these changes, but I realized, oh shoot, I forgot to do that in your folks' packet, and these would be included in the revisions as they would go to council if you saw that as appropriate. So I think that's my staff report. We have gone ahead. We issued notice for this. I mean, it's a relatively small change, so we didn't anticipate a whole lot of public input about it. We haven't gotten any sort of public input about it. So that's it in a nutshell. Are there any questions?
I've got a quick question, Fred.
Yeah.
For the Public Works design standards, what's the mechanism for those updates?
That's my exact question. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I figured I wasn't the only one.
Yeah, it's a staff sort of, Karen, how does that work? They're adopted by staff and then ratified by council. Is that correct?
Yes, basically, yes.
So, okay, so staff recommends changes or updates and council just sort of up or down vote. Okay, thank you.
Believe so.
It's
I don't know if they,
Like,
I don't
this
know
is
if they've given,
Sally. Go ahead.
I don't remember if they've given the authority to the city manager to approve any updates.
Oh. Yeah, I just wondered if they were vetted out with anybody other than staff.
They're really, I thought maybe Karen was going to answer. It's really not. These are really they're really the standards that our engineer sort of applies. If there are major problems with it, staff is always willing to take a look at those. And, somebody could always go to the city council at that point and say, hey, you know what, there's a big problem with this. And because I'm pretty certain they're ratified by the city council still, that we sort of adopt, the Public Works Department sort of adopts the changes, and then those changes are then go before the city council at a certain point and they're ratified. If there's problems, I mean, the city council always has the prerogative to come back and look at those and say to staff potentially, there's some problems with these Public Works design standards. There's also a tremendous amount of, there are definitely standards, but if someone's having trouble meeting the standard, there is the opportunity for an applicant to work with city staff, so long as the Public Works Department, so long as the thing that they're suggesting actually makes engineering sense. You can't deviate from a standard if it doesn't make no engineering sense. So there is a process for deviations as well. Yep.
Thank you.
Do those standards then come like with state recommendations? I mean, where do you get them to begin with? where do the engineers get the basis for what they're recommending?
Our city engineer works with a firm that he does a lot of work with. He's a contract city engineer, so he does a lot of work with other cities, and so they tend to apply similar standards in a variety of other cities. And as they see issues with them, they'll make revisions to the standards, or as we see issues with the standards, we'll make revisions to the standards as well.
So having it all in one place would kind of alleviate the question in that subdivision for the duplexes. They were saying they were questioning some standard, and Independence Public Works person said, well, that's addressed in a different place, and yes, you're right, this is what we'll do. So this would put that all together so someone coming in would know where to look.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, it was, you remember when we originally had this was before that hearing, and somebody asked the question, I want to say it was Alex, like, what is the problem that this is trying to alleviate? And I said, well, there's going to be some instances where some people come in under one standard and they think that they've met our standards, but in fact, we actually have another standard that they'll also have to be subject to, or some sort of answer like that. And it was, you're exactly right. I mean, it's good that you caught that. There are potentials where under our current standards, somebody thinks that they've met the stormwater standards, when in fact, oh, there's actually another standard that they're subject to as well. That's more restrictive.
Well, I'm all for simplification and making it easier for people to, at least get through. So I hopefully that was not a prophetic question when I asked it however long ago. Like,
well, it absolutely was, and I mean, it was one of those things where I knew the application was there. I knew there was stormwater associated with it, and I knew that there was the potential that they would have to go through additional public works design standards review. So yeah, very prophetic.
All right, any more questions of Fred? Okay, and Karen, there's no speakers whatsoever. I'll go ahead and close the hearing. And I take it we need to have a vote on this, Fred?
That's right.
Okay. That makes pretty common sense to me. So who's up for the motion?
I'll
try it. This is Sally. I move that we recommend that the city council approve LA 2020-03 as presented within the staff report without changes.
And can you put and the additional changes included in that document that I showed you, just to have the cross references right?
Along with the additional changes as provided by Fred tonight.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right. So next on the agenda, we have other discussions and information items. 8.1, transportation planning and trolley projects.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's talk about transportation a little bit, right? So let's just do this. I mean, it's fairly early in the night. We can at least get into transportation a little bit. You know that right now we have two separate transportation planning projects going on. And it's interesting having two of them going on. It's interesting. They sort of like feed back on each other. It's an interesting thing. Now, which one do you want to talk about first? I guess I'll talk about the trolley project first. So we got some funding from the state legislature to consider the possibility that a trolley might run between downtown Monmouth and downtown Independence. or some variant of a route like that. Part of the reason for this was to increase economic opportunities, all this sort of stuff. I bring this up because right now we're running a survey for this project, and I should have pulled up our little flyer for it, but let me try and pull up a flyer for it and just show it to you. Shoot, that's not there. Well, anyways, we're running a survey. I'll have Karen send it out to you, the little flyer that we're sending out. So far, we have a whole ton of responses. It's pretty exciting to the survey. It got out on the campus and a whole bunch of people responded to it. So that's neat. Now let's talk about the transportation system plan, because the transportation system plan is this big, it's a long range planning document for our transportation system. Where we're at right now we've really tried to identify what the problems are. We've talked about some of those, right? We identified some of the intersections. I offered you guys $20 if you could figure out a good way from here to downtown Monmouth on a bike. Like all of those things, right? We know that there's certain problems. Now, our consultant has considered those problems and they've come up with a list of alternatives. And they're really trying to get to this point where they're whittling down this list of alternatives into preferred alternatives. Now, we kind of tried to look at this today, and what we realized is, man, you know what? We have to do some additional work, just even sort of vetting these alternatives. We need to make sure that these things make sense. And so that's kind of what I want to do with you folks today, is just talk about some of these alternatives. And if there are some good other options, man, let's get them out on the table. Because, you know, right now, like sort of where this is at, I don't think we would get the transportation system that we ultimately want, right? So there's a couple of intersections that I just feel like we fundamentally need to figure out. And I will share my screen and let's look at a couple of these. All right. Oh, wrong screen. Oh, that's not it. Oh, I see what I'm doing. All right.
Hey, Fred, I have a quick question. Is the same consultant doing both of the plans?
They are not.
Okay.
Yep, they're two very different consultants with two very different skill sets. So it makes it interesting. So let's just talk about Main and Monmouth, right? I mean, here we go. We got this intersection right here. You can see we've got historic buildings all around. You know, we know that the intersection is going to back up. It backs up right now. And we can just see, oh, there's just not a whole lot of room to do things to that road that would actually sort of improve situations. Now, some of the alternatives that the consultant has come up with, let me see if I can pull up my alternative list here, are things like a northbound left turn lane, right? Well, a northbound left turn lane doesn't have enough room for a northbound left turn lane. Where you've got the curb and the curb, you're going to have to take away pedestrian space or something. They considered a northbound left turn lane and something like a eastbound right turn lane, right? Well, again, this is one of our most pedestrian important spots for pedestrians in downtown. And so that alternative just is difficult. They suggested, you know, a traffic signal. They considered things like potentially a couplet or some sort of square roundabout sort of thing around the area. The couplet that they suggested was taking C and it's sort of in our current transportation system plan where you bring C down like this, and this is one way this way, and then Monmouth turns into one way this way. They also suggested the possibility of potentially extending it out a little bit. We suggested things like potentially a square roundabout sort of concept, or even something like jug handles, which is like a square, rectangular roundabout is how it's drawn up. And, you know, even Kate and I talked about the idea of potentially like figuring out ways to like do more system-based improvements where not everybody has to go to that intersection. Now, fundamentally, I think that this is one of the biggest nuts that we have to crack, and I think it's one of the most difficult things that we're considering, right? What are your guys' thoughts about what you would like to see at an intersection like that, at Main and Monmouth? What do you folks, what are your thoughts? Are there things that we're not thinking
Fred,
about? Yeah.
Fred, this is Sally. Was there any conversation about making Main Street one way and like Second Street the opposite way? So make one northbound and one southbound? And then, but somehow you still need to put them together on the north and south ends of town, but.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, there's, that was not per se an alternative, but are you saying something like this, Sally, where you come in something like that, you come through like that, and then the other one is going through the other way?
Exactly. So when you come into town one way or another, maybe you don't go right down Main Street. Maybe you take a jog somewhere and go down Second Street.
Right. Right. That was not per se an alternative that got considered, but it's something that I'll encourage them to at least consider. One of the things whenever talk of a couplet comes up or something like a couplet, it seems like it goes more west and east than north and south are the alternatives that I've seen come out of it. Now, I mean, one thing that kind of makes sense to me is, you know, just watching how people drive through it. A lot of people, if they're stuck in the backup at Main, right, when from the bridge, they'll sort of cut over on one of these streets, right? And it's interesting, I was talking to the librarians about it, and both of them said, hey, there's accidents at Second and in Monmouth. And the reason for them is because people are trying to cut, and then they end up getting in an accident here. Or they hear a lot of screeches and stuff. Now, one idea that I think might make some sense is rather than trying to solve the issue at the intersection, like trying to figure out, is there a way that you could actually do something sort of off the intersection that you could do, that you could use to alleviate the situation, right? Now, I don't know exactly what that is, right? Does anybody have any ideas about ways that we could address Main and Monmouth outside of the intersection?
I guess what's the data say in terms of wait time, and what are we trying to cut? Because I understand it does back up, especially at like 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, when people are coming through, but it doesn't seem to me to. I mean, maybe it's a bigger problem than I realize. It seems like it's for a few minutes a day.
Yeah.
And I, you know, of course, taking out like the bump outs for the corners and whatnot is a sort of a non-starter in my mind. But I guess what's the ideal time wait, or I guess, and where are we at, and I guess how far apart are we in terms of what is perceived as good versus bad?
Right. That's a great question. The data is there. It's in probably tech memo 4 or 5 that's been prepared. I don't have those open right now. I could open them up and we could find it. But I mean, fundamentally at a certain point, what I could almost see happening is that the backup gets to the bridge, and then it starts impacting how the bridge functions and people coming off the bridge.
Gotcha.
Right.
No, yeah, that's totally fine. I just wanted to make sure that I guess I haven't read all the memos, of course. So
Yeah, I mean, there's times when the backup is out in front of City Hall. So that's
Well, a lot of the backup is people trying to get 90 to 99, and there needs to be a better route to 99 that's south, so the River Road bridge traffic does not cut through town. And that would be a huge solve. If you could go straight and down that road, right out of River Road, that would alleviate a bunch of the backup that goes to City Hall, I think.
So where are they going on 99?
They're trying to get to Monmouth or Dallas, and they're just trying to get to 99 to go north or probably even down to Corvallis. And they're just using Independence as a pass through. Because I live on the subdivision south of, and so I see it all the time. People are charging out in the road, they're trying to beat the other traffic, and they're trying to get somewhere. And not necessarily even a resident of Independence. They're just passing through.
Right. I hear that a lot. That a lot of what we see is more regional traffic.
How long would it be until that road to the south goes through? Because you have it in your plans, both for, I think you call it Mountain Fir. Down, it would be south of the bridge that would go east-west.
Yeah.
But a long time out, right?
I mean, that's one of the things that we absolutely know that we want to do. Part of the hangup has been the railroad, right? And trying to figure out how to get across the rail line. Previous studies, the railroad told us that we could not have an at-grade crossing. And without an at-grade crossing, that bridge then becomes $11 million, which is expensive.
What happens if you start to funnel traffic west on G Street and then north on 7th Street and put stoplights in so that they don't have to go through downtown, and you continue to be able to have your pedestrian traffic because you need that for your businesses downtown? Right.
I think that that's a very good question, and that's one of the things that I've really been encouraging our consultant to consider is, are there ways to do more of a, instead of trying to solve the problem here, do you want to do it at a place like 7th, or would you want to do it at a place even like 4th, which makes some sense to me as well, because 4th then does connect, it goes to the school, it also goes north. If you allowed people to say, get out of the queue and come over here and figure out a way to take a left onto Monmouth safely.
You would need to have a light, and you could also do it north of downtown on, what is that first street? Is it B? You could do it there, or you can encourage people to go past the airport to Gun Club.
Right.
Or all the way over to 99.
Right, yeah. And so, I mean, something like that, then you're trying to solve the problem, but not at that intersection, right? Does that make some sense to you folks?
Yep, I'm with Becky. Have the light at 7th.
Yeah. You need stoplights, though, if you're going to bring them back onto Monmouth. You need a stoplight at 7th already. And if you bring them up 4th, you're going to need a stoplight there.
Right. Well,
too much traffic otherwise.
Right. Right. It would either be a stoplight or a roundabout. You would absolutely need to do one or the other. And one of the things that we're always going to have trouble with the state about is trying to convince them of allowing a stoplight. Right. It's just always going to be a difficulty for us. Now, I think we have a compelling case in this instance because, like, I mean, seriously, we're not addressing the problem at the most complicated spot, right? You know, we're by removing it from the most complicated spot that we could try and solve the issue, we're actually, I mean, we're actually helping things a lot. Now, I mean, if you did something like that, then all of a sudden some of these side streets can bear more of the load for getting people through the downtown, right? Ultimately, I think that if we did it at 7th, it might be too far into this neighborhood to bear that load, which is kind of why I think I kind of lean towards something closer to the downtown area.
Well, if you do it at 4th by the school, that should add to your argument that you need a stoplight for pedestrian traffic across for students.
Yeah, I think that's good.
The one thing that we were talking about, Fred, and you know, I look at examples now of like a lot of people do use like Stryker Road as a cut around because they know they don't need to go through downtown. And so that road during the morning and evening, what I would say kind of peak commuter traffic hours or hour in town get really busy. And so I like to look at some alternatives like that, or where we can encourage traffic flow to go so that they don't have to get funneled through downtown.
Yeah.
My concern with pushing people through some of the streets right around the downtown is that they're not really designed to accommodate that kind of traffic. So again, you're kind of looking at, then you have to upgrade those road standards, which isn't certainly not something that is a deal killer by any means. We've talked about this need in multiple kind of visioning plans, other plans of a southern route that connects more to 99. And I know that that bridge and the railroad is a big sticking point, but I feel like we're just kicking this can down the road, and it's because it's expensive, because it's difficult. So let's try to come up with these other alternatives when 10 years from now, that's probably still the ideal alternative that we really need to consider. And if it takes $11 million, it takes $11 million. I'd rather see us get a fix in place that's really going to solve multiple problems, because having that southern alternative route is also an emergency management consideration. Instead of if we're just going to funnel people back to Monmouth Avenue, we're still creating these pinch points. We're just kind of letting people kind of funnel there a little bit differently. And the other point I want to make is this idea of like a roundabout in downtown on like Main and Monmouth really would impact the historic character of that downtown. And because it is a designated historic area, I'm not sure what the regulations for that would be or how that would come about, but I think we do need to be aware of that. And then the footprint that's going to take up would be considerable, and that would be a big impact, I think, to that area down there. And then the idea of like one ways, there's a lot of studies of where that has been done, and it creates a huge impact economically to the downtown businesses. So I would be, again, cautious about putting in something where it would be sort of a one-way couplet type of situation.
I think that's good, Kate. I got a question. When you say roundabout and downtown, are you talking specifically at Main and Monmouth? Would you
Correct.
think a roundabout at something like 4th and Monmouth would still be inappropriate?
Yeah, I mean, if you imagine the roundabout that's down by the hotel, and then you try to pick that up and put it at one of those intersections there, I have a hard time picturing that, and also seeing how that would help our traffic situation function any better.
Okay.
I would think a roundabout at 4th would be difficult for pedestrian traffic. And you've already said it's near the school, so it makes sense that there are students there. Roundabouts aren't made for easy crossing as a pedestrian. They're made to make traffic flow.
I appreciate that. That's not exactly true, but because there are lane splitters, so the crossing distance is reduced. You're only crossing one lane of traffic each time. But I mean, I think that's all good. I mean, this is the sort of stuff that we, unfortunately, at this point, we're sort of. I mean, we haven't had a whole lot of these conversations. Like even in the group, the technical and the community advisory group, that we haven't had some of these conversations. So I appreciate you folks sort of going through this stuff with me now. So I think that's good. So Kate, you think that a south bypass would help solve traffic in downtown?
I think like Tori mentioned, there are a lot of people coming off that bridge that need to get over to Highway 99 or through to Monmouth or wherever. Even if they just need to go to, say, the Edwards Addition, they're funneling up through downtown and then across. And if there was a way to bypass that and just get them more directly across that southern edge.
Okay. I think that's so. Okay. What I think that's good. So one thing that I just want to, I guess, communicate is I'm not of any sort of illusion that one single solution is going to get us to the future that we want. I think that ultimately what we need is a friend of mine called it silver buckshot, right? No silver bullet, silver buckshot, right? And so the thing is, we need, it seems to me that we need better connectivity, period. Like, and so we need to be looking for connectivity at every place. Like, I mean, and we need to use the streets that we have in a better way, because I mean, there are pinch points all over the place. We need better connectivity, just period, right? So, I mean, figuring out how to make even things like Randall Way and F Street work a little better. Sorry, Corby. But you know, to handle some through traffic in the community and things like the southern route too. Like, I mean, yeah, all of these things are things that we want to do, that are fundamentally important to actually address some of the transportation issues that we have.
Hey, Fred, this is
yeah.
Sally.
Uh-huh.
Your comments about using the streets that we have better. I totally agree with Tori. We live in the same neighborhood, and if it were easier to turn left off of the bridge, I think more people would use the existing southern route. Takes you a little bit farther out of your way to go to Stapleton, but it's just a couple of miles. You can come back into town on the south end. You can come up into Monmouth on Highway 99, get into the residential areas in Monmouth quite easily that way, just going a couple of miles south. It's very difficult to turn left off of the bridge, and it'd be interesting if we had some mechanism to make that easier, to see how much that would alleviate the traffic that's going into Monmouth, or excuse me, into Independence, because it's easy to make the right-hand turn and then funnel through the pinch point that's an Independence.
I think that's a great point. So Sally, how would you address the bridge?
Yeah, I don't know. Is there enough room to put a roundabout there? I don't know if there is.
That was one of their alternatives. I don't know if it's they put about that this alternative could require additional right of way. But I mean, I look at all of these ones and it's like there's some serious infrastructure cost associated with each one of these. Like, you know, they put a westbound left turn. Well, if you do a westbound left turn, they said this would require widening the bridge. It's like, that's expensive too.
Oh, Lordy. Yeah.
I mean, when we look at it, I mean, literally the bridge ends right here, and there ain't no room for a left, and we all know that when the left's back up, then you can't turn right out of there. And that's part of the issue with what's going on the bridge.
Yeah. The other issue is people turning left from Main onto River Road. That's another key corridor. And because people are always turning left, people don't want to wait. So they turn right and they go into town.
Gotcha.
From the road.
Gotcha.
I don't love roundabouts, but it seems like the one thing that might make that intersection move.
Yeah.
I mean, I love roundabouts, and I don't think I think, Fred, you're talking about that doesn't, I'm having a hard time imagining how much space you would need there. And I'm also imagining, like, even just to go back to like couplets, like I'm imagining combines coming through downtown Independence and having to like couplet around, like just bob and weave and just sort of like that flow being just a little bit of a maybe palatable by a lot of people, but also not palatable by a whole bunch of folks who use 51.
And the farm trucks that are heading to Salem.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's a good point. Now let's just see because we can measure just about. Let's see if I can see what that is. Is it right away, brother? I
mean, I feel like we're adding up quickly about 10 or 11 million dollars worth of projects with like 3 roundabouts and maybe a new bridge. That's probably much more than that. So
yeah, well, no, so that's part of that's part of why we want to have these conversations, is because what is the solution? How do we do this? And again, no silver bullet, but it's like, how do we do this in a way that makes sense, that it's not a crazy amount of money. Like, for example, the Southwest plan right now, which is a fine plan, the Southwest plan calls for 3 bridges over the South Fork of Ash Creek. We're not building 3 bridges over the South Fork of Ash Creek. We're having trouble building 1, right? So the idea that we're going to put 3 new bridges in on the South Fork of Ash Creek is just not realistic. And so based on that, how do we do it? How does that impact things like Mountain Fir, right? Mountain Fir Avenue, that southern route. I look at this map a lot and I try and figure stuff out. And it's just complicated. It's if it was easy, we would have done it years ago, right?
Fred, haven't they done several studies on that south alternative? This isn't the first time that the city has looked at this.
Yeah, it's exactly right, Kate. That the south alternative, I don't know exactly where it went to, but the idea is that it comes right here. And I'm sorry, let me get rid of my, comes right here, goes over or goes at grade at the railroad tracks, comes down like this, comes something through here to serve this area. Now, the thing about that south arterial is that once you get here, this is the edge of our urban growth boundary, right? We end right here. And so anything beyond this point is out in the county, right? And the idea of the south connection is that ultimately it's going to connect to this road right here, which is called
16.
Ash Creek in Monmouth or something like that. Now, the thing about that is,
it would, yeah.
This is the South Fork of Ash Creek right here. And so you would come along through the county and do a really abrupt turn to somehow get to this, right?
Why would you have to bring it to that street?
Right. Well, that's part of the question too, is why would we build another bridge right here to connect to this street?
Right.
That's part of the question too. But does the road lose some of its functionality if we just bring it out to Talmadge? I don't know.
if you just bring it out to Talmadge, then people have the alternative to go north
Or south.
or south to, and get to Stapleton and go across.
Right. And the thing is, then we wouldn't have to build a bridge, but the thing about it is too, that we would have to go through the county to make that connection.
Right.
And our city engineer is doing something similar over in Marion County, and Marion County has said, no, we are not going to allow you to go build one of your city roads through our county. And so they haven't been able to make the connection.
So has anybody talked to Polk County about that?
They are sitting on our advisory committee. I mean, I will say that we do have a study about a bridge right here on Chestnut. This is Brandy Meadows right here, a bridge right here on Chestnut. So, I mean, that is, we're definitely considering a bridge there too. So,
yeah, and that would come to 13th before it gets over to 16th, right? And then when it would go up to, you have it going to Madrona right now, Chestnut bending north and coming into Madrona, so that makes Madrona a through street.
No, the Southwest plan shows it coming into here, which is Gwynn Street.
I thought it came into Madrona.
There is a street that comes across Maple that we show another bridge on.
Mm-hmm.
That is not likely to happen.
Right.
And that comes over here to Madrona. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean,
obviously, if you're going to develop it, you're going to have to put those bridges in. You can't not do it.
Yeah, well, we definitely need at least one of those bridges. Yeah, that's exactly right. So, I mean, this, and I agree completely that a way to get across would be very helpful. I'll just call out things like, if we could make things like Randall Way function better, that could potentially encourage more people to go west and east, and this Madrona eventually is going to come across all the way to 13th. So, I mean, people are going to eventually be able to get from one side of town to another to the other on back ways. But I mean, is it the most straight? No. So yeah, all of those things are important, and you can tell. I mean, and we're definitely trying to figure out all of those things, because I mean, I think fundamentally our biggest problem is connectivity, and just the fact that we have so little of it, especially in that area.
Well, I've noticed that since Ross went in the new store, that the traffic in front of my house is not as much volume. So, I mean, there again, that's dictating that we need a light at 7th Street, because people are going to go out to Monmouth and have to make that left turn if they're going to go up to Ross. I don't think people, if they're going to go to Ross now, are not going to come up Randall Way just to come up to another street that doesn't have a light or anything, other than they went through the parking lot.
Yeah.
Except we're still having a speed issue. I mean, I think the average speed on our streets at least 35, maybe 40.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be one of the things that, as we're making these connections, we need to make sure how to keep these streets, the speeds on them manageable, right?
Well, definitely. I mean, we don't have a lot of little kids in our neighborhood. I mean, there are 2 little girls next door to us, but I never see them out in front. They're always playing in their backyard. But there's still a lot of foot traffic. Becky sees that when she walks every morning. That if you're even out and about, when I'm walking down to the mailbox, I've really got to pay attention, because there's somebody either coming westbound high rate of speed or eastbound high rate of speed, and I've gone out and screamed at a few of them. It doesn't seem to help. But
And neighborhoods turn over. You know, in 10 years, there may be a
Yeah.
lot more children in that neighborhood.
no,
Yeah, that's right.
I think
So-
the railroad has too much power. It blocks off too many of our east-west off Main Street. Because you could do River Road on I to 4th Street and make that your cut-in if the
Right.
railroad would let you do it.
Right. Right. Which would be nice, right? If you could just come right here and then have it to
Mhm.
4th Street and then make 4th sort of a north and south sort of route through the community. Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. But you're exactly right that we're having trouble getting any of these connections across the railroad. But yeah, I would be helpful. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll just say that, I mean, at this point, we really are exploring all sorts of different alternatives about connectivity. We got one idea that I really like, but we're kind of doing some more research on. So I won't share that. But I mean, we really are trying to figure this out. Now, are there any more thoughts just sort of about the vehicular stuff? I mean, we could talk about Polk and Main too. The alternatives that they suggested for Polk and Main right there by that Los Primos, right there by, the Greystone Apartments. The alternatives that they came up with this here at this intersection left a lot to be desired for me too, just to be honest. One of the things that they suggested was like a left turn lane, right? They also suggested something like a two-way left turn lane on the north and south legs. And that doesn't even make sense because these are left turn lanes right now. I don't understand that alternative, but does anybody have any good ideas about what could be done at this intersection?
has a traffic light been mentioned for that location?
There hasn't, but I mean, a traffic light there makes some sense to
Yeah,
me.
because you have the bus barn there. They're coming out. I mean, you got the fertilizer plant there. You've got the trailer manufacturing plant. Their trucks are leaving, coming and going.
Yeah,
And you know,
yeah,
for anybody going to try to head to Salem, they're either going to go out Hoffman to 99 and come all the way around, or they're going to sit at that intersection certain times a day and take forever to make a left-hand turn to go north.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know. I mean, how hard is it? Does the state come out and look at this stuff, Fred, and see?
it's all based on things like volumes and accidents.
Or in the city of Independence is what the third or fourth largest growing or fastest growing city in the state last year. It's only going to get worse. I mean, we keep growing and growing and growing. So sooner or later, the state's going to have to address it. And
Yeah, I agree.
well, I mean, I know traffic lights impede things, but it helps to make the flow of traffic smoother.
Mhm.
But what do I know? I'm still waiting for the light at 7th Street.
Any other thoughts about what can be done there outside of I mean, any bright ideas for that intersection?
I mean, that does seem like a place, again, proponent of roundabouts, that might work. But I mean, the footprint is large. There is really, I mean, I know the one that, even getting talked about it, like for the county at like 99 o'clock corner, they're talking about how big they have to make it. It's sort of so that like trucks and equipment can get through. This intersection carries obviously not nearly that many sort of bigger vehicles, but at the same time, you'd have to make accommodations for that because it is a main thoroughfare for bigger stuff. And so, I mean, stoplight seems easy. Again, we're not traffic engineers, So like I'm always hesitant to just start throwing out ideas about like, well, I think this will work, because I don't, I have no basis, sort of just besides sort of maybe common sense, and even then that might be arguable. But a light seems probably. I mean, I will say personally, I will never take a left there if I can avoid it, because it scares me. Because
I hate taking a left there.
Right.
Like
And
when I lived at the apartments, I would always take a left on Stryker and drive around and then take a right to get to the river place or River Point, whatever it's called.
So I mean, I think having some sort of protected left there for folks turning on seems to make some sort of sense. But again, like, granted, the traffic consultants don't seem to necessarily be on that page anyway. So sort of why hire another traffic study just to tell you that you need a roundabout through and then like 4 extra bridges and whatever else. So,
well, I mean, I think that there's certain things that I think that there's certain things that we need to figure out. Like, I mean, it's just sort of fundamental. And there's some intersections that I'm with you, like that one just sort of scares me, so yeah.
At least it's slow enough speed. I mean, that's like the saving grace at 35. It's not, 45 or 55. I mean, it's not Cloud Corner, right? Like,
oh yeah. Well, you got to take so much speed out of. I mean, you got to take so much speed out of that road to make a roundabout work over at Cloud Corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right. But I mean, right here, people still go really fast through this. So I mean, a roundabout in that location might have the benefit of actually taking some speed out of the road as people are coming into downtown. You know?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So let me show you with it being a transportation system plan, we're not just considering roads. I mean, one of the things that we're focusing a lot on is roads, but as part of this, I also want to do a non-motorized sort of network. And I've just been playing with ideas. I'm going to show them to you. And if you guys think I'm washed up, you guys just let me know. If I got any bad ideas, you just let me know. Now, some of these are in our parks plans, but our parks plan or Southwest plan, I didn't include all the trails from those things. Some of those will no doubt get in. What I was trying to do was just create a network so people could get from any point in the community to another point where it's like a nice backbone of a system. And so you'll see, like I just noted, like Hoffman Road is pretty wide. It's got bike lanes on it right now. If those were even a foot wider, they would be more comfortable for bikers. Another one that sort of makes sense to me is I always forget the name of this road. What is that? Magnolia, the one by Legacy Oaks Apartments. These are the Legacy Oaks Apartments here.
Is it Marigold?
Marigold. Let me show you where I'm talking about. Here's the Legacy Oak Apartments, Marigold. You'll see we have Ash Creek Elementary right here. It makes some sense to me to really make this a bike safe street. So all of these folks from these houses here, these apartments here, could get to this school here, right? That makes some sense to me. Now, if we did something like that, we could also figure out a way eventually, and the parks plan shows a trail, something like this, to come out, and we could get either to above the dog park here and eventually to the trail like that. And that seems like something like that would be a nice sort of network that could get people from point A to point B. Now, it also seems to me that if Monmouth wanted to take that trail further, they could consider taking that trail further and eventually connect it in via maybe Hoffman or something to the campus, right? Is that making some sense? That idea kind of makes some sense to me. Now, part of it is because there's a school right there, right? And I'm calling it a trail, but it'd probably be just making it safer to ride a bike on these streets. Make it clear that there's going to be bikes on the road and to be watching out for them. All right. Another one, so you'll see that I'm just sort of saying a route like that to get you above the dog park, or potentially you could come down like that to the dog park. I'll just, I guess I won't talk about all of these, but one idea that I think makes a ton of sense, and I'll show it to you on a better map, is this idea of East Street and trying to make this more of a bike-friendly, a pedestrian sort of street all the way through. And so right here of the apartments, if we took this street, made this super bike-friendly all the way down, and then figured out a way to cut behind like Ross, and then behind Waremart, there's right away back here and whatnot. And then ultimately over to 51, so Monmouth could pick it up here on their Jackson Street and take it in to the campus. I think that that would be a really nice sort of bike facility for the community. And I'm actually thinking that we could consider it as more of what I've been calling it when I'm talking to people is a non-motorized or alternative transportation main street, right? That I think that that would be super cool. So say you're aged and you've got a little scooter that you ride around, right? You want to get from downtown Independence to downtown Monmouth. You know, the guys in the scooters? You guys know those, right? My wife's grandpa had a scooter and he lived in rural Pierce County, Washington, and he would ride that thing on rural roads, like 55 miles an hour he wouldn't ride it 55 miles an hour, but he would ride on the sides of roads that were 55 miles an hour. I mean, it was just, that guy was crazy. He was amazing, right? But he would ride that thing around, and we see more and more people riding those things around. I've seen at least 4 different individuals riding those scooters around the community. And so rather than trying to make them interact with travel on Monmouth Avenue, give them a spot where they can ride in a way that's safe. You know, if there's a bike share sort of thing on the campus, give them a place that they can rent, they can grab a bike or a scooter or whatever and ride to downtown Independence in a way that's safe. So that's one idea that I got for this, and just really trying to make this a bike friendly street where really you're trying to design the thing to make it safe for bikes the whole way through, or non-motorized transportation or alternative modes. I also think that you could do something similar on 5th, and you could get people to the school sort of to the gate that they got on 5th, and then ultimately you could do something similar potentially on Ash. And so anyways, I guess those are some of the ideas that I'm sort of thinking about with this, really trying to make a non-motorized system through the community and trying to build on things like the trails that will be there along the South Fork of Ash Creek, and also the trails that will be there on the Willamette River. So essentially taking the Willamette River Trail and then pulling the goodness from that into the rest of the community, right? That's sort of what I'm thinking, and like trying to figure out ways to tie basically every part of the community into that trail system and that trail network.
Fred, I like it a lot.
Right.
I really like I like what you're thinking about. I like the like a non-motorized backbone.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
Cool.
And there are a lot of people who walk that way too, so it would be a nice way for them to get there without having to be on 51 the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I think would be so cool about it too is, I'll just show you this, is like if we did something like that, there's all sorts of lots back here. Like this lot right here is in our urban growth area. Right now, that's kind of in a no man's land, but if you put something like a real nice sort of non-motorized alternative, this thing's gonna drive me nuts, non-motorized transportation thing back here, then this all of a sudden becomes right in the middle of everything, right? Also, some of these things like behind First Baptist, behind the I don't know, Independence Health and Rehabilitation Center, right there. Some of these back spots all of a sudden become in the center of things rather than just sort of behind what's on Monmouth, right? They actually become sort of in the center of what's going on. So I don't know. That's I think that makes some sense with that whole East Street idea.
I think, Fred, I think that's a huge missing piece with our community is having a better bike and pedestrian trail system. I'm kind of surprised that we haven't built it out a little bit more in the inner neighborhoods. We've done a great job down by the river, and I think that's where we've been putting a lot of focus and attention on that. And it's a fantastic amenity, but I've seen the impact that these regional trail systems can have on communities, and it's pretty phenomenal. And I think we'd see bike ridership go up significantly between the communities, because when you think about it, it's only 2 miles between the communities. It's flat, or basically flat, but there isn't a very safe way for people, especially if you have families on bikes, to make that trip between the places, you know. And I'm a somewhat comfortable bike rider on the street, but I wouldn't want to take my bike out on Monmouth Avenue that much unless I really have to.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I agree with you entirely.
It also makes it easier for people within Independence to get down to the river.
Yeah.
It's not just going west, it's coming east and being able to enjoy what's built up along the river without having to drive down there and try and find parking.
Yeah, just I'm a third all of that, because I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I'll share one more sort of idea that, so if we did something like that, I ultimately think, man, it would be so cool if you could figure out how to run some sort of people mover on it then too, right? Some sort of like electric sort of vehicle that you could, here's where we round back to the trolley idea, right? Where you have some sort of lightweight vehicle that's running on the path that people can walk to the path. And then if they see the electric vehicle going back and forth, and you do it quick because it's not interspersed with traffic, if you could do something like that, then you could hop on the electric vehicle and you could ride into downtown Independence, you could ride into downtown Monmouth, and you could do it in a way that you weren't having to get in a car to do it, right? I just think something like that would be really, really neat, and it would be ultimately pretty transformational to how that whole sort of part of town works, you know?
There used to be a little train that ran down Jackson Street and went
Yeah,
in.
it's the exact I mean, isn't that compelling? Like, hey, we're doing this trolley project, and guess what we came up with? Exactly what they had in the olden days, except we're going to include some space for pedestrians on it as well. So, yeah, I think that something like that would be super compelling. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean.
So where are you going to get the money?
So where are we going to get the money? Now, we are doing a trolley study right now to determine the feasibility of a trolley. As part of that trolley feasibility study, we need to find a route, right? part of the difficulty in finding a route is, I mean, transit lives and dies based on its convenience and the speed with which it can turn people around. How fast can you go back and forth? How reliable is it? How, all of that stuff, it seems to me, is fundamental to how transit works. Now, if we're running transit on Monmouth Avenue, guess what we're doing to Monmouth Avenue?
Yeah.
We're stopping everything, you know? We're putting another mode on there that's having to compete for space and time, all of that stuff. Also, we're putting what we want to go fast in the midst of traffic, right? Which not all the time goes fast, which doesn't always go fast, right? And so if we could figure out a way to pull it off the street, then it can run at its own speed, right? It could go as fast as, you know, some sort of fancy electrical vehicle could go.
Well, plus if you had some sort of backbone on the north side of Monmouth Independence and then on the south side, you could do a loop and keep it off of Monmouth. That's an interesting kind of approach. I think my takeaway from that one trolley meeting that I've attended is that there's maybe a slight disconnect between maybe the intent of that legislative money as a transit piece, solely as a transit piece, versus sort of a tourism and economic development kind of approach. And I think the consultant is treating it as a pure transit project, and it probably doesn't pencil as that. But does, maybe when you start to talk about something like this, it does become a transit, but then also just like, I don't know, you're going to see parts of the community that you wouldn't otherwise see, but then still deliver to sort of Main Street to Main Street.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and that guy's defense, I mean, I think he's doing a great job, and I think that he's approaching the problem in exactly the way that it needs to be approached, like where you figure out how can you actually run this service, like what is out there and how can it actually work.
And what the actual costs are, depending on frequency of 30 minutes between rides or 15 minutes, It's a little bit eye-watering. I mean, just since we're already doing like 400 bake sales at this point for infrastructure projects, I mean, what's another one? But that is a no joke amount of money.
There is no doubt about it. And what I like about the whole idea of potentially putting it on something like a East Street is, then we're talking about infrastructure. We're talking about an infrastructure project too, where it's actually like something that's going to encourage development around. So if the trolley ever goes away, we still got sort of that non-motorized alternative Main Street,
Yeah, I love that. That approach seems spot on.
And okay, so just one more thing. Like, imagine on Independence Days or whatever, imagine we got something like this. Then all of a sudden, say people get rickshaws or something, or get something like a little bike that they can roll a basket behind, right? And they can pick up people on the path or whatever, and they could bike them down to the events wherever they wanted to go. Then all of a sudden we're getting, I mean, we could even have people moving without the people mover, right?
Yeah.
It could be more decentralized.
Helps the city absorb all of those visitors, if they can safely move on surface streets and, whatever else. So yeah, no, I think I appreciate your creativity and how much that I know it keeps you up at night thinking about this stuff, because that's the clear. So.
Funny. All right. Well, I mean, we could keep on talking about this stuff, but I think that that's pretty good. Basically, I mean, we are working hard on this and we're trying to figure it out. But I mean, with COVID and trying to get some of the information out, it's been pretty difficult. And just the sort of scope of the documents that are getting created, like distilling it down to useful information has proven difficult as well. So we are going to try and maybe get some more social media posts out. If there's forums that you guys know about where we can talk with folks sort of face to face or computer to computer, we would please let me know. And yeah, that would be great. So yeah, I think that's it.
All righty, we could move to 8.2, upcoming public hearings on the flood standards and industrial zone standards.
Yep. Next meeting, we're gonna have both those public hearings, flood zone standards, and then the other one that you mentioned, the industrial rewrite. So be prepared for those next time. I don't think that we're going to have anything else on the agenda. I think that that's going to be it for the next meeting.
All right, something to look forward to.
Do you guys have any questions about those two things before that point?
I had a quick question about the transportation, sort of like what the timing is for those plans or recommendations or whatnot, or how much more public input process there's going to be.
Yeah, so the trolley one.
I meant for the TSP. Not
the TSP. Yeah, we are to the point where the consultant is almost like trying to pull the trigger on some of these preferred alternatives, and we sort of got in a room today and we're like, we think we need to go back and do some additional work to really make sure that we're going in the right direction with this. And so that's sort of recognizing that that's part of the reason why I wanted to sort of have a more in-depth conversation than just sort of an update tonight. And so I appreciate you guys being part of that. So essentially what's going to happen is probably within the next month or so, we'll see a list of preferred alternatives come out. Until that point, there's going to be some outreach associated with it to just vet some of these ideas a little more. And then early next year, you guys are going to start seeing a draft of this plan, and you guys will hold a public hearing on the transportation system plan.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right, any other things to discuss tonight? We don't have anything else. How about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. All right, good night, everybody.
Thanks, Frank.